Positions in CSS. This is a feature utilized commonly for placing elements out of order or rather placing them in the very most unnatural way possible. So let's say, for example, we have this document that I've created, and this document is showing a large div at the top, which is having a background color red, and there's another div with a background green. And I've created two paragraphs with identical random text, which I have created. And also inside this paragraph, I have introduced a small span with a background color of its own, which has the text para1. Okay. So going back to our code over here, we have these styles created and of course our elements also populated. And as you can see, the para1 element is basically a span, which is having a class POS2, which has been given some background colors. Now, all of this has been done to accommodate visual impacts as we transform our code. So the first thing we organize is, let's see what happens when we scroll our page. Nothing. Items are rendered in their fixed positions and you are able to scroll up and down according to it. So let's play around with the position of the very first div, which is known as POS, the class given to it, and it has a background color red. So I am setting it a position property relative. When I set it as relative and I try to set some positions to it, let's say from top, I wanted to move about 200 pixels. The moment I do that, the space where the div was rendered is left intact and it is having a background blank as whatever the document's color is. In this case, the document color is white, so it is showing background blank white color. And this element has moved about 200 pixels to the bottom as we have set to it, right? So that was a position from top 200. So relative to the position of its parent, which is the document itself, the HTML document body itself, it has moved 200 pixels towards the bottom from the top. I can also make this position oriented from bottom side instead of top. And once I do that, again, the natural rendering position of it is left blank, but the element has moved to the bottom and it's out of scope of visibility to us. So let's take left and right. Similarly, from left, you can move it a little. You can also do it along with the top position, and you can see it has moved diagonally 200 pixels. This is the beauty of CSS positions. You can give relative positions to a particular item. Now, the relative position set over here was for the item that was the red text over here. Now, let's say I undo all these changes which I performed over here. I try to set the relative position to POS2. POS2 is basically the span that I've created inside this first paragraph. The span being an inline item, which is basically going to treat your text as an inline text, and it is not going to act like a block as if it was a div or something. Let's set a position as relative. The moment I do that, all the properties, that is, it has to be moved from top 10 pixels, left 20 pixels, with a specific width and height, has been set to it. Now, the width and height property, it being a span, is not active on this, so I can get rid of these out items. And you can see this paragraph has this item inside this paragraph has moved slightly low and to the left. I can increase the position of it. Let's say 200 pixels to the left, and it has moved 200 pixels to the left. But remember, this has happened in relation to the paragraph itself, not to the document. When we moved the text from top for the red div, it moved pretty much well from the top 200 pixels. So let's say if I try to move this particular block 200 pixels, it will move 200 pixels down with relation to the paragraph itself, that is its own parent. So note it that positions when set as a relative will be acting upon the basis of the parent element or the parent component. So the positions will be relative to its parent. Similarly, we have a position setting known as absolute. When you have an absolute position created, it basically just overlaps everything and it doesn't even leave back the background space that was to be taken up by the render. The absolute position basically lifts it one layer above the document, meaning there is no more space required to be consumed on the document. Hence, there is no blank area at the back. And this appears to be on the top of the rest of the document. And you can make it static or you can make it positional based on, again, relative positions of the document itself. So if absolute, no matter if POS is inside any other part of the document, it can be positioned related to the document. So let's say from top, I give it a position of 50 pixels, and from left, I give it a position of 100 pixels. And we have this positional shift. This can be done for creating sort of paywalls, or even creating your modals, which are like small window-like UI, which is created and it's available in Bootstrap and many UI frameworks if you have seen it on a website. So let's also try applying this style. I'm going to copy this and apply it to pos 2. Pos 2 is basically that tiny little text inside our paragraph. And now if you see, the position of pos 2 has been made relative to the document instead of its parent, which was the paragraph. This is how position absolute behaves. Absolute means the absolute position in accordance to the document. And of course, you have to set the position in X and Y axis, either from the top or bottom, or either from the left and the right. Avoid doing it for both left and right together, or bottom and top together, because there could be many calculation mistakes which can be made derived from the size of your element and the size of the screen. Also, we have one more position property known as position sticky. Now, if you look at our document, the document renders normally. And if I apply this position 6 class with a property known as sticky, position sticky, I also need to give an offset, that is top position offset. And let's say that position has been set to 0. This is basically the property for where the position of the item should be, because what sticky does is it appropriately changes the position of your element from being absolute to being fixed. So what fixed and absolute does is, absolute gives it a position which is naturally rendered, and when you have given it a offset of top 0, it remains exactly at top. So if I scroll my document now, you see the div remains where it was. Regardless of how much I scroll on my page, the div remains where it is. And this is often viewed on menus that are present on single page websites. So if you wondered how they achieved this, it is very simple effect. Now remember, this top 0 is basically the offset set from the top position. So if I set it to 20 pixels, it has got a offset of 20 pixels on the top, and you can also see the items being scrolled from behind it. So you know how you can use it and where you can use it. The sticky bars on the left or right are also positioned this way. Now, apart from sticky, you can also use position fix. Now, remember the text which we used para 1? I can make some modifications to that, which was given a class called pos2. I'm going to give it a fixed width. That is, first of all, I'll have to turn its display property to display block. And then I'll have to give it a width of, let's say, 100 pixels, and a height of 100 pixels to make it look like a square. And next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into a position which is fixed. And the fixed position can be moved to the right side 0. So there is no difference over there. And if you can see, it remains at the natural top position which was given to it at its time of render, and it can be moved to the right. These are very identical to, this box is very identical to the tiny menu boxes or social share options that we see on some websites, which are stuck to one side of the screen. That's achieved by using position fixed. And remember, the position sticky changes your element between absolute and fixed positions. That's about positions. You can try out more impacts and effects with positions all by yourself. Thank you.